Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to the Practice 1 Watchalong for the 2023 Japanese Grand Prix weekend here at Suzuka. Hello to you, wherever you are in the world and what time zone you're in, whether it's the same as me, middle of the night, whether you're, North America, where obviously it's a bit of a better time, or if it's middle of the afternoon over to the Far East. Hope you're all doing well, and hope you'll be joining me today for watching along the first session of the weekend, getting underway in just under 15 minutes' time. And yeah, very much interested to see how the initial pace will look in this session. The reason is because there are a couple things to find out in practice, especially today, from what we saw obviously a week ago in Singapore, for example, with, this man on screen, the team he races for. Will Red Bull's problems persist, or will they just magically, go away, and will they be back to their absolute best? We'll have to find out today whether those issues are still showing. Red Bull have reverted back to the new floor they brought in Singapore that eventually they decided not to use for the qualifying and race in Singapore. So we'll see whether that floor maybe still causes issues for them, or maybe the rear end of the car still is not that stable after what we saw in Singapore. My feeling is that Red Bull will be absolutely fine. I think they're going to be definitely winning the race this weekend. Maybe not necessarily being on pole position, but yeah, I'm pretty confident Red Bull will get back to what they are normally doing in Formula One in 2023. Also, though, we need to see today with a new floor upgrade, a completely new floor upgrade. We need to see with Ferrari how maybe that has improved the performance of their car. Because if it does improve the performance by 2-3 tenths of a second, Ferrari, the rest of the season could be definitely a lot more competitive with Red Bull, at least in qualifying, and a bit harder to fight for Red Bull in the races as well, even if Red Bull will still have ultimately the key advantage over the Ferrari team in races. So yeah, we'll see how Ferrari's new floor handles in these sessions. On Sky F1 right now, they're actually looking at the Ferrari car, the pit lane. A beautiful looking car, of course. And yeah, we'll see how that gets on. I've just seen, by the way, the official released list of FIA upgrades. And yeah, Ferrari have brought probably the biggest upgrade this weekend. A couple other teams have brought performance upgrades, but they're very minor. Mercedes, for example, have got a new rear wing end plate, but it is, again, a very minor upgrade from Mercedes. And we've got, I think, a couple other teams that have got performance upgrades, but again, it's very minor stuff. And Ferrari, biggest upgrade for the weekend. We'll see how that does for them. Judging by the amount of new parts they have brought, I can't see them gaining any more really than a quarter of a second from that upgrade at this track this weekend. So, it's not going to be a gigantic improvement. It does work for them as much as it, possibly can. And yeah, we'll see in this session what goes down in a few minutes' time. And yeah, before we get into the session, just wanted to say, in case I didn't say it already, hope you guys are all doing well. And no matter what time zone, what part of the world you're from, where you're at the moment, hope you're all having as best a time as possible, and that you'll join me in watching along and enjoying practice 1 now, and practice 2 coming up in 3.5 hours, I think, from now. Got a busy next few hours here on the channel, and I'm very much looking forward getting into this session. The weather at the minute at Suzuka is dry, and the weather actually looks pretty decent. It's kind of sunny, I guess you could say. The sun is threatening to break through the clouds at the moment. So, yeah, weather is looking fine, which I am very happy to say that, because sometimes here at Suzuka you can get, a bit too much rain, and that can really affect the weekend. As we saw last year, the race, I mean, we didn't really get the start of the race properly going until, I think, 2 hours after the original start time of that race. As I say, these mechanics doing some last minute work to the car of Lewis Hamilton, preparation for this session. But yeah, practice one will be underway in a few minutes. I'm a Sky F1 just going to an ad break. Let me know in the chat, guys. Yeah, what teams are you looking out for in the Friday practice? What are you looking out for from certain teams? And in general, what are your thoughts going into the race weekend? A couple things I want to get into quickly, though, before I go through any comments in chat or whatever, is one, of course, the pictures I'm going to be showing in this practice one stream is not going to be pictures from the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, except these ones you're seeing on your screen from yesterday. What I mean is, you're not going to be seeing cars from this weekend's Grand Prix event during the watch-along, because, of course, we've not had any running so far. So, yeah, just bear with that. And also, what do you call it? If you're wondering, why am I covering practice one and practice two? And, of course, tomorrow I'll be covering practice three and qualifying, and then the race on Sunday. And yeah, in general, I am doing so many streams. If you're wondering why that is, the reason I'm doing a practice one and practice two stream, as well as the normal stuff I do, because a big portion of my fan base is from North America. And of course, in North America, the timing of this session, and to a degree, practice two as well, is actually pretty decent. So that's why I'm doing that. And that's normally why the European friendly timings for practice one and practice two sessions, whether it's for a European race or a non-European race that's just friendly for European time, I don't tend to do watch-alongs for those sessions because, the majority of my fan base is either at work or asleep during those sessions. But this is a bit different, so that's why I'm doing these two watch-alongs. And also, I mean, one, normally I'm awake during this time of the night anyway, so I may as well do a watch-along for both sessions. And also, another final reason is that I need to swap my sleeping pattern around anyway to get it, perfect for covering this event this weekend. So, yeah, that's the reason I'm, doing extra content this weekend compared to normal. At the next Grand Prix in Qatar, it will be quite a bit more back to normal, because of the timing of the Qatar Grand Prix, a lot more, not necessarily European friendly, but yeah, it's quite a bit of a different time zone. Plus, it is a sprint weekend in Qatar, and of course, you guys know that I don't like sprint weekends, so I'm not going to be covering absolutely every session. And looks like at the minute that I'm not going to be actually doing a watch along for the sprint race in Qatar in 2 weeks' time. So yeah, that's the plan at the moment. We'll see. Going into that Grand Prix, exactly what I have confirmed. Anyway, 5 minutes to go until the session gets underway. And let's read a couple comments from the chat before we get into the session. Also, you might be wondering, why is there not a poll running at the top of the chat? Of course, I did my weekend preview a few hours ago, where I did a poll asking, who would be most likely to challenge Red Bull. I don't have any more ideas for what I could do a poll for that would be, that would make sense at this point of the Grand Prix weekend. So, yeah, that's why there's no poll in the chat. There probably will be one for the practice 2 watch along in a couple hours' time, based on I guess, what happens in this session. But yeah, that's why there's not a poll running at the moment. But let me just read out a couple comments before we get into the session. Will Chan, Jesus Chazza, what time is it now? Yeah, 3:26 a.m. It is here in the UK. Brabamars, I know for you it's brilliant time. It says, hi Chaz, listening at work as it's the only time I've got shown during the day in my part of the world. And Grillany, I think it is, says the aggressive Lewis Hamilton looks like he's back. Let's hope so. He was very scathing of his own performance in qualifying, I think yesterday in the driver press conference. So yeah, let's hope so. Paulie says hilarious. I thought 12 was midnight tonight, midday, perfect. Can sit back and enjoy. He's saying I need to wake up still. And yeah, F1 intro graphics are now playing. Before we get into the session, though, one other thing I need to mention is the tyre compounds this weekend, which are the C3, C2, and C1 compounds. They're not officially the 3 hardest compounds that Pirelli have, or the absolute hardest compounds they could bring, rather. Because you have the C0 compound, but that compound will never get used. But yeah, realistically, it's the hardest compounds they could have gone for, which I've got to be honest, I am a bit disappointed they've gone so hard with the tyre choice. I would have rather them go for C4, C3, C2. But one thing to look out for, especially in this session where a lot of the time they're not going to be on the soft compound tyre because they want to save that compound for later in the weekend, is so the time difference between the C3 and the C2, the soft and the medium, will be half a second, but the time difference between the C2 and the C1, which this weekend is the medium and the hard, instead of it being half a second like it normally is, because of how hard the C1 compound is compared to the C2, the difference is going to be, I think, about almost a second between the medium and hard compound tyre, which is why I don't think we're going to see the hard compound tyre get a lot of running in this weekend, especially in the race, unless it's really hot. I don't really see a hard compound tyre getting used that much because I think it was just too slow compared to the other tyres. And even to a degree, you could say that with the medium compound, that even that could be, to a degree, too slow and too hard. So, yeah. I just saw people there on the roller coasters next to the track. Anyway, let's get rid of this timer. Let's get into the session proper. And, of course, practice 1 will be an hour-long session. And I will sync up the timer at the 59-minute mark. I am 99.9% sure there is no Friday reserve drivers driving in this session. So, yeah, should be the normal drivers. As witnessing Ed Kravitz walking down the pit lane. Look at the Red Bull that is at the exit of the pit lane on a set of hard compound tyres. Red light hasn't gone off for the green light yet. But clearly, the teams think there is a chance of some rain coming. So, yeah, that's clearly why they're waiting at the end of the pit lane that early. Well, in practice 1, if you knew it was going to be dry for the session, I don't think they would be waiting to get out so early. As Ferrari, nowhere near getting Carlos Sainz out on track. No tyres even on his car. Yeah, it'll be a Red Bull first car on track, as I think the green light has now gone, and it is Max Verstappen who will be the first car on track. And yep, he's just about going now as the session is underway. So, Verstappen first on track, and then it is Alex Albon second. Go through turn 2, where you have the very lovely, new painted yellow and black curb on the inside of turn 2, where of course Sebastian Vettel planted his or did his, what was it? Is it his beehive that he did, and all the drivers and personnel were helping with, you know, all of that stuff, and you know, the painting and all of that, and that was great to see all those pictures from yesterday of Seb with all the drivers. And yeah, Max Verstappen first car on circuit, as I'll get the timer on screen in 3, 2, 1, and there you go. 59 minutes to go. Let me just that, and yeah, there you go. So let's find out in this session who is going to set the early pace of the weekend. Oh yeah, another thing to mention is Pirelli have brought a couple of prototype tires for this weekend, and I believe the prototype tires are supposed to be similar, as close to the C2 compound as possible. So these prototype tires, of course, the reason they're bringing them here only for practice is so Pirelli can get some data for 2024. And of course, that is very important for them. I think they're bringing the prototype tires to another race this season. I think it might be Mexico, but they're only bringing it for practice. AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda, who's got the he's got a bit of aero kit on his car. Just coming through Spoon Curve now, and he'll be coming back into the pit lane in a moment. But yeah, during the session, guys, if you've got anything you want to ask me, or just any thoughts you want to post in the live chat, then make sure to do so, and I will read out some comments during the stream, because of course practice 1, not exactly the most eventful session of the race weekend. Any bets that something will happen to Yuki's car on the first lap? Well, let's hope nothing like that can happen. And then you have Mickey asking, any drivers going to be testing the new tyres here today? Yeah, I'd imagine every driver will do a run on the new compounds, but I don't think they're going to be doing that much, to be honest. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a race weekend. This is not a test session. And the teams need to be developing understanding on the actual compounds as to how their car is handling, how they're looking going into the weekend. There's Lewis Hamilton here, going slow through the final chicane, and now starts his first flying lap of the race weekend on the prototype tyre. Nice camera looking over his left shoulder. Flies through turn 1 and turn 2. The Red Bull there, parking on the inside, just getting out of his way. Now coming through S's. As I said in my weekend preview a few hours ago, it's such a wonderful place to watch cars go through. It's absolutely fantastic. But one thing I did want to quickly get into is, and by the way, no problem, Paulie, who says thank you for the telecast, most appreciated. One thing I did want to quickly get into was the best practice 2 times from this weekend's, from the Japanese Grand Prix last year. So let me just quickly find that if I can. Sorry if you can hear a lot of clicking in the background, but try and get this up if I can. And can't remember if practice 1 was it was a wet session. That's unfortunate. But qualifying last season at Suzuka, which was in the dry, pole position was a 1:29.3. Lewis Hamilton comes back into the pit lane. Yeah, 1:29.3. Max has just gone quickest on a 1:33.7 on a compound that should be probably a second and a half slower than off compound tyres. So that's actually a pretty quick first run, considering what the pole position time was last year. As Carlos Sainz saying on the radio he says, quote, "I got full of the green stuff from the McLaren. How do you call it? On flow viz." And he says, "Yeah, the flow viz. Fuck, I'm full of it." As we're now looking at Kevin Magnussen going deep at the final chicane, something that everyone does. And yeah, going deep. So let me just get the order correct. So Max Verstappen is quickest, as I said. 1:33.7 on the hard tyre. Fernando Alonso is second on the Pirelli test tyre. Then you've got Oscar Piastri third on the medium compound. Ocon goes 7th. With the lap he's completed. So yeah, Verstappen, Alonso, Piastri. Leclerc is 4th on the test tyre. And then you've got Hulkenberg in 5th. With Perez in 6th. Then Ocon 7th with Carlos Sainz in 8th place. Then Bottas 9th and Gasly in 10th. And then you've got Russell 11th. Zhou in 12th. Lawson in 13th. And then Magnussen in 14th. And I think Sargent in 15th. And the bottom few drivers of Hamilton, Tsunoda, Norris, Albon, Stroll have not done a lap time so far. Here is, though, on the broadcast, on board, Lando Norris as George Russell goes up to 5th on the Pirelli test compound. Lando Norris beginning his first run of the weekend on the medium compound tyre. Perez goes 2nd on the hard compound. Max Verstappen now quickest with an even better time of a 1:33.3. As Nico Hulkenberg on the hard tyre goes up to 4th place. Yeah, the McLaren that has basically just completed the first sector should be incredibly quick through there during the weekend. That's my expectation, at least. It's always been very quick in the high-speed corners, really, since that massive upgrade in Austria. So, yeah, that's the expectation. But for the entire lap, given the characteristics of the circuit, yeah, not expecting McLaren to be fighting for pole position or anything like that, as Kevin Magnussen goes up to 11th place. Smooth lap here for Lando. Now, up to the middle sector point. Oscar Piastri goes 2nd for McLaren. With Fernando Alonso on the test tyre going up to 3rd. Lando Norris exiting the final chicane, comes to the line and does a 1:34.2, which puts him up to 3rd place. So, hold on, let me quickly do that. Yeah, Piastri with that lap goes slower than or Norris, sorry, with that lap, goes slower than Piastri. Lewis Hamilton goes 6th. Yeah, you would expect Norris to be quicker this weekend, given that Oscar has never raced at this track before. Plus, well, Oscar does have the new upgrade, but obviously Lando will have more feeling for how the car feels with that new upgrade than Oscar will currently, as Valtteri Bottas goes up to 7th on the medium. And we got any other times? Sargent has gone up ahead of Lawson. Is a replay of Logan getting dangerously wide through the exit of Degner 1. Such a tricky part of the track, the Degner corners. If you get the first part wrong and you go, over the red and white curb, you're toast. You're ending up in the barriers. This happens so many times here. As Russell really flying through Degner 1. Looking great through Degner 2 as well. Better lap on the test tyre. Pierre Gasly, notice, has just gone 13th as Carlos Sainz improves up to 6th. As Russell is coming through Spoon, bit of understeer. In the second part of Spoon, though, looks okay. There's a good slipstream from a McLaren ahead. And Russell, nowhere near the pace of Verstappen so far on this lap. Russell goes a bit slightly wide, I'd say, through the entry to the chicane. Comes to the line, though, and goes up to 5th place on a 34.5. So there you go. As Liam Lawson up to 15th place. Here is Max Verstappen, who's now out there and has now started a new flying lap, and he's now on the test compound. As Zhou on the medium goes 13th for Alfa Romeo. And the only drivers now that have not set a time, Tsunoda, Albon, and Stroll. Bottom 3. Stroll, though, on an outlap. Albon was on an outlap, but for some reason came back in. So, no idea what that's about. Max Verstappen. Purple first sector. Again, remember this test compound is supposed to be basically, I guess, prototype version of the C2 compound, which for this weekend is the medium compound tyre. So it is softer than the compound he used to go quickest so far. C1. As Leclerc improves up to 6th place. As Kevin Magnussen goes up to 14th, and Max Verstappen 6.5 tenths quicker than his personal best after the first 2 sectors. This will be going comfortably into the 132s, probably a mid 132. Exits the final chicane, and 32.5. Good improvement from Max. About 3.2 seconds away from his pole position time of last year. So, 15 minutes in, it's Verstappen, Piastri, Norris, Alonso, Russell, Leclerc, Perez, Sainz, Hamilton, Bottas, and then Hülkenberg, Ocon, Zhou, Magnussen, Gasly, Lawson, Sargent, and then, Albon, Stroll, Tsunoda have not set a time. Stroll, though, currently on a flying lap as Sergio Perez on the test tyre goes second. 133.8. So over a second slower than Verstappen. Fernando Alonso on a quick lap, or a quicker lap, on the medium. As Fernando going through the spoon curve. Car looking okay but unspectacular. Which, well, is a great way to describe the Aston Martin car right now. As Alonso half a second down on Verstappen after the first 2 sectors. Not too bad of a lap so far. This lap will put him up into second place. Gets through the final chicane just about okay. Comes around the final corner and yeah, goes second, 5.5 tenths of a second lower than Verstappen on what is pretty much the same compound. There's a replay of Max Verstappen being fault slightly, and Max saying that Mercedes was so dangerous, or was so dangerously in the way there. And yeah, as he went to go, turn left uphill for that really fast end to the S's section, George Russell was a bit too close, but was just about okay as Liam Lawson goes 12th for AlphaTauri. Zhou Guanyu now goes 12th. Lance Stroll come back into the pit lane with George Russell now going up to 5th. Alex Albon now on an outlap. We can see Albon on, I think, the test compound. Yeah. See what he can do in a moment. But, I mean, to be honest, for this session, and even for practice 2 to a degree, it is hard to say what lap times we should be really expecting in this session to be, the quickest time. Of course, pole position last year was a 1:29.3. So, what should we expect pole position to be this year? Maybe a mid 1:28, something like that at best. And if that is the case, then probably in this session, I think the best lap time you can expect to see, and it will be probably done on the soft compound tyre, you're probably looking at the best lap time of I'm trying to think. Best lap time of a mid 1:30, which would be 2 seconds quicker than Max has gone so far, which I think realistically, yeah, they could definitely get up to that lap time, or down to that lap time, even with them running conservatively with their engine and fuel settings. So yeah, we are still quite a bit away from good lap times in this session. Yeah, again, it is really a guesstimate, but pole position time on Saturday, obviously tomorrow morning, pole position time should be a mid, maybe even at the absolute best, as Alex Albon goes 14th, a low 1:28. We'll find out, though, more about what the pole position time is likely to be after these 2 practice sessions today. Normally, I've noticed in the last 2 or 3 races that pole position tends to be a 1.5 seconds quicker than the than the best time in practice 2. Not exactly a 1.5 seconds quicker, but near enough. Say between 1.3 to 1.5 seconds. So that will happen today in regards to that, as Max Verstappen has gone slightly quicker now on a 1:32.4. There's a 1.5 quicker on that lap. As we're looking at Yuki Tsunoda now doing a lap on the medium compound tyre. Teammate Lawson in 13th on the test compound, as Tsunoda losing the car a bit. through the entry to Spoon. Quite spooning the apex, fortunately, of that corner. As, yeah, Yuki saying on the radio, I have quite a lot of understeer. Yeah, car definitely doesn't look that easy to handle. Comes around the final corner to the line and goes only 18th. Just ahead of Logan Sargent. They just ahead, but 0.4 of a second pretty much ahead of Logan, as is a replay of Logan at Degner 1. Handles that fine. This goes a bit too quick through the exit of the second part of Degner. Probably just applying a slight bit too much throttle. Being too aggressive. Of course, it's also the first time for Logan Sargent here at Suzuka, so about finding the limit for him and for Oscar Piastri. And also, has Liam Lawson raced him before? Probably. Given that he's been racing in Super Formula, I'm not sure exactly. I don't follow Super Formula, I'll be honest. Yeah, a couple people out there literally needing to get to grips with this circuit. Only got, what, 4 cars on track right now. Sainz, Albon, Tsunoda and Sargent as Sky F1. Seeing that, I've gone to an ad break just over 20 minutes into the session. But yeah, we will get a bit of running on the, the Pirelli test compound, but I think definitely second half of this session will see more running on the actual compound to get a better idea of how certain teams are performing in this session and later in practice 2. McLaren from Racers, fair play to you, Chazza. This is an unearthly time. It is for normal people, but I'm not normal. This is a time that I'm used to awake at. To me, this is like, this is like 6-7 p.m. for most people. Nicky says, looks clear to me that Red Bulls are back on top already, then they won't repeat last weekend. Let's hold our horses. And we're nowhere near the best pace we can do in this session. Has Stroll set a time yet? No, not yet. And Crystal Racing saying Stroll was sunk to Mazepin levels of awful. True. And he has. McLaren F1 races. I think Super Formula races there, Chaz. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do race there, but I'm just wondering, have they already had their race at Suzuka? Because I know there is one final round in the Super Formula Championship left, and Liam Lawson does still have the chance of winning the Super Formula Championship. He's racing for Team Eugen. Also in that series, you've got Jean Alesi's son, Giuliano Alesi, who I don't know if he still is, but he was at least a part of the Ferrari Driver Academy. But yeah, they did race at Suzuka, and Liam Lawson did not win that round, but they are racing at Suzuka at the end of October, 27th to the 29th of October. So yeah, there you go. So good practice for Liam before he tries to win the Super Formula Championship. He's 8 points behind Ritomo Miyata. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. The reason really he's behind in the championship is because he had a poor race, it looks like, in Motegi. But yeah, we'll see how he gets on there. Crystal Racing says 2023 grid might be the worst F1 has had since 99-2000. I completely disagree with that. The 99-2000 grid, I will agree, was pretty shit. I mean, you only had probably, what, 2 actual great drivers on the grid? You know, Schumacher and Hakkinen. The rest were good, but they weren't on that top level. If you look at the current grid, we've got, you know, quite a few top level drivers, I think. So yeah, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's up for debate whether this is the you know, the highest quality grid we've ever had. But I wouldn't say it's the worst we've had in a while. I think the only comparable grid we have had recently that was close to being as bad as it was back then was around like 2015, 2016 time, where we had, you know, Berry, Stevens, Gutierrez, Arianto, Ericsson. And I know Ericsson, you know, has turned out to be pretty good, but at the time, I don't think actually that great. Yeah, so on and so forth. As George Russell currently on the medium compound tyre and on a better lap. Not a great lap still, as he is in 5th place currently. He's probably going to stay, to be honest, in 5th, despite improving his lap time. As, let's see if he does go up the field. He does. He goes up to 3rd place. Does Russell. So it's Verstappen, Alonso, Russell, Perez, Piastri, Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Bottas, then Hülkenberg, Zhou, Tsunoda in 13th, with Albon in 14th. This is a replay of Lewis being blocked by Liam Lawson, I think it is, through turn 1 and 2. Him being accused as to what AlphaTauri driver was doing, and actually no, it was Tsunoda. And it was, right, so I think Tsunoda completed a lap, went through turn 1, and Hamilton was just coming out the pit lane same time. I don't think Tsunoda quite saw, you know, coming past, as Lance Stroll goes all the way up to 3rd place for Aston Martin. So let me update that. Don't know what compound he was on. I'll let you know when I find out. Yes, Stroll up to 3rd. And not anymore, because Lewis Hamilton goes 3rd for Mercedes. As we're getting quite a few more drivers out there on track. Pierre Gasly now improves up to 7th place. Let me just update that quickly. And there you go. Gasly up to 7th. Liam Lawson is on a better lap at the moment. Yes, there's now Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton, Stroll, Russell, Perez, Gasly, Piastri, Norris, Leclerc. As Liam Lawson, currently 17th, goes 8th on the medium compound tyre. So up to 8 is Lawson. There is a Super Formula Liam Lawson fan. Good to see. The Japanese fans, probably the best, I think, for Formula 1 across the world, to be honest. As here is the first person to run the soft compound tyre. It is Nico Hülkenberg for Haas F1. So let's see how quick he can go. And yeah, car looks pretty good, gotta say, through the first sector. As he's nearly, or pretty much, 0.3 of a second down on Verstappen through that first sector. So it shows you how good the Red Bull is in Sector 1 compared to the Haas. Hülkenberg exiting the hairpin and heading towards the spoon curve. I'm just going to have a quick drink a moment because my throat's a bit, yeah, like not feeling that great. Hopefully it's a bit better. Hulkenberg now coming up to middle sector. The lap has looked fine, but he is 3/4 of a second slower than Verstappen after the first two sectors. This is not a good lap. Hulkenberg, as Lando Norris now goes up to third on the test compound, as Hulkenberg now goes third for Haas. So let me just quickly update that. Hulkenberg up to third, and Lando Norris up to now fourth place. As here is Sergio Perez on the soft compound tyres. Here we go. Starting to get some more so proper running now. As we had another improvement there. Esteban Ocon going up to 11th spot. Now George Russell going up to 4th on the medium compound tyre. Sergio Perez, 3rd of a second down on Verstappen. Perez runs wide through the first part of the final chicane. And Perez to the line goes 0.6 of a second slower than Verstappen on a compound that is, well, a step softer. Pretty poor time there from Perez. It is Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Russell, Norris, Hamilton, Stroll, Gasly, Lawson. And now Magnussen in 11th, with Ocon 12th, Piastri 13th, and then Sargent up in 14th now, with Bottas 15th, then Leclerc, Sainz, Tsunoda, Zhou, Albon. That's your 20 drivers. Just wanted to say quickly, before we get into the rest of this session, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Of course, I'll be live for practice 2 in a couple hours. Make sure to join me for that if you can. And I'll be live later today on Friday at 8 PM UK time for the qualifying preview. Then I'll be live on Saturday morning for practice 3 and qualifying, live on Sunday morning for the race, and live on Monday night to review the weekend. So make sure to join for all that content. And if you want to keep bang up to date with the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. As Verstappen on the soft compound tyre, 5.5 tenths up on his personal best. This is going to be a stonking lap from the world champion. And as well, for everyone watching, make sure to smash that like button. Only 14 likes so far. We can definitely get that up. So let's try and get up to say 20, 25 likes by the end of the stream if we can. As Max Verstappen coming through Spoon. Car looked absolutely fine. And let's see what his middle sector time is like, and it is 0.8 of a second up. So this is going to be a mid 1:31, which is not too far away from probably the best time we'll see overall for this session. So good lap here from Verstappen, and I've got to admit the Red Bull looks already visibly a lot better than last week. And yeah, Max Verstappen remains P1 and does a 1:31.6. Yeah, the Red Bull looks a lot better, and Red Bull definitely look satisfied with what they've seen so far. As we've got the two Ferraris on outlaps now, and they are both on soft compound tyres, which is great to see. So now we're going to get to see first proper low fuel run Ferrari this weekend, and it will be Leclerc kicking things off for the Scuderia. Now belting his way down into turn 1. Car through turn 1 and 2 looking absolutely fine. No problems whatsoever. yeah, through this S's section. Ferrari looks good, but I won't say visibly looks better than the Red Bull, but I won't even say visibly looks worse. But, well, quite a bit off in the first sector. 3/4 of a second slower. Carlos Sainz, quite a bit quicker than Leclerc in the first sector. Sainz still 0.3 of a second slower than Max, but yeah, 4.5 tenths quicker than Leclerc in sector 1 alone. Now Leclerc heading towards Spoon. And into Spoon he comes. And through there. Oh, slight correction on the exit of the Spoon curve, but looks fine other than that. And his middle sector time is not great. 8.5 tenths down now after the first 2 sectors. Sainz, half a second down after the first 2 sectors. Carlos Sainz is going to go up to second probably with his lap. Leclerc might go second now, actually, before Sainz does. And yes, Leclerc does go up to second, but where does Carlos Sainz go? Yeah, up to second himself, but is 0.6 of a second slower than Max Verstappen on that run, which is, well, I know it's only practice 1, but I would have expected the gap to be a bit closer than that, put it that way. So, Sainz second, and Leclerc is third. For Ferrari is massive tank slapper for Piastri through Degner 1. Brilliant save as well. As Zhou having a moment through Spoon, having to go off the track. Thankfully didn't get far enough to meet the gravel. We're now looking at the Williams of Logan Sargent on the soft compound tyre. Not done a personal best first sector, unfortunately, as Valtteri Bottas goes up to 11th place. Yeah, Logan definitely not improving with this lap. So I don't know what he's done to these tyres. To have not be getting any gain out of them unless he's running a bit more fuel than before. The car with him at the wheel, though, does look a bit all over the place, as he does a personal best final sector, but stays in 17th place. But yeah, top 4 with nearly 20 minutes to go. Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, Perez all have done their best time on the soft tyre. Alonso 5th. He's done his best time on the medium, but he's now on an outlap, so hopefully Alonso on the soft. There's a replay of Hamilton going slightly too wide on the exit of Degner 2. Straddling the curb and quite getting the best exit. As yeah, Fernando Alonso just coming out of the Spoon on his outlap, and he is soft compound tyre. So let's find out what pace Aston Martin have got compared to what Red Bull and Ferrari have done so far. Alonso, who has only won here once in 2006, and that win he took in 2006 basically won him the world title. Michael Schumacher in that race having an engine failure. It was well timed for Fernando, because I think that engine failure for Michael was his first engine issue in a race in like 5 years. Came at the absolute wrong time for Michael. But yeah, 1 win at Suzuka, 2 wins overall for Fernando in Japan. One of them, of course, was at the Fuji Speedway in 2008. Alonso, though, first sector is pretty decent, actually. And not that much lower than Carlos Sainz, as Alex Albon goes up to 4th place on the soft compound tyre. Yeah, what I was going to say was the last time Fernando Alonso, guys, was on the podium at Japan, or at Suzuka rather, was 2011. That 2011 Japanese Grand Prix, as some of you may already know, was the first F1 race I ever watched live on TV. That's how long ago it was. It was what, 13 years old? Time? As Alonso, middle sector is not great, but it's not bad. As all understeer through the first part of the chicane, that's definitely cost him 10th or so. As Lawson complaining of very light rain on his visor as Alonso goes up to third place. Alonso, though, I think probably could have gone 0.2 of a second quicker that lap, but yeah, not too bad from the Aston Martin. F1 go to another ad break with 19 minutes to go in first practice. McLaren for races off back to sleep. Cheers, Chazza. No probs. Paulie says Sir Stroll is probably good at lancing due to the straight run, but may experience issues with the yellow and black lines and join his old teammate for some honey and therapeutic recovery. That's sure an interesting comment. Mickey asks, would take Yuki or Lawson if you had to pick one driver for next season? Probably Lawson, given how just amazing he's been so quickly into his Formula One career. We have to remember as well with Liam that he is young. He's only 21, I think. Is Liam Lawson? Yeah, 21 years old. Yuki Tsunoda is 23. I mean, Tsunoda, still pretty young, to be honest. But when you look at Liam Lawson, what he did in Formula 2 last year, and given the team he was racing for, Lawson had a pretty good year. It wasn't maybe as good as it could have been, but it was a pretty good year overall, given how old he was and how experienced he was, and again, the team he was racing for. Of course, the Formula 2 cars are the same for each team, but each team, certain teams get more out of the car and have better operations than others do. So yeah, I thought Lawson had a good F2 campaign. And from what I remember with Yuki Tsunoda, Tsunoda did well in F2, but it wasn't anything that was much better from him compared to what Lawson did really in 2022. Not like Tsunoda won the championship. And if you look at what Tsunoda's done in Formula 1, and of course Yuki has had a very good year, no one is denying that. If you look at his overall Formula 1 career, he's not really had that many, standout performances. Again, there's been some good ones this year, but overall, when you look at the other drivers on the grid, he's still not really close, in my view, to being one of the top 10 best drivers in one. So, yeah. I'd probably say Lawson if I was to choose, if I was the decision maker. And Mickey saying only a crash will stop Max this weekend from winning. Their opinion? Well, still time for someone to prove that they can actually stop Red Bull Max Verstappen. I'm trying to see on Twitter if there's any news, and I can't see anything at the moment, as we're now back from the ad break. And we have got some new positions. We have got Lance Stroll in uh, in 6th place on the soft compound tyre. And then you got Perez, Hulkenberg, Russell, Norris completing the top 10. Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz on an outlap, along with the 2 AlphaTauris of Lawson and Tsunoda. Liam Lawson, we're currently looking at on the broadcast, is on the soft compound tyre. You got Hamilton in 11th at the minute. Oscar Piastri is 12th, the Pirelli test compound. And it's Bottas, Gasly, Lawson, Magnussen, Ocon, Sargent, Tsunoda, and Zhou. Liam Lawson begins his first run on soft tyres for the weekend. And this is his final F1 race weekend, possibly for quite a while. And you never know in Formula 1 with how, certain drivers who do deserve to be on the grid not getting enough of a chance. It could be a very long time until we see him again after this weekend. I hope not, because he's clearly proven that he's good enough for Formula 1. There is, I think, no doubt about that. Lawson, decent first sector. Car looks okay through the hairpin. Now heading towards the spoon curve. Lawson looking very good through the entry to the spoon section. Car absolutely bang on the apex. Now, the middle sector, not too bad through the middle sector, actually. This is probably going to put him, maybe, in a 5th, 6th place. He has a really good final sector. Exits the final sector now. Slight loss to the rear end. Comes to the line. And it is 6th place. He did not do, though, a personal best final sector, so it could have been better. Lawson 6th for AlphaTauri. And as I said in my weekend preview, look out for AlphaTauri, because I think they are going to be the dark horse of the weekend. As Lando Norris improves up to 5th on the test compound, which again is akin to the C2 compound, which this weekend is the medium. So about half a second slower than the soft compound tyre. Lando had done that lap on the soft. He's gone, 3rd? As talking of 3rd, Charles Leclerc back to 3rd ahead of Fernando Alonso. Carlos Sainz currently on what appears to be a long fueled run, but more of a race run, let's say, on the hard tyre. Clearly a bit more fuel on board, as sector times are quite slow. We're about to enter the final 10 minutes of play in this session, so we'll see who ends up quickest in practice 1. Probably will be Max Verstappen who will end up quickest, but there's still time. And I still think they can go a bit quicker yet if, want to push a bit harder, as Yuki Tsunoda goes impressively up to 4th place on the soft tyre. So let's update that quickly. Tsunoda all the way up into the top 4. Quicker than the Aston Martin, as Kevin Magnussen now out there on medium tyres. Got Alonso, Albon, Stroll and Bottas all on outlaps currently. Magnussen just completing the S's now. Yeah, Magnussen clearly on heavier fuel. First sector is 3.5 seconds slower than Max Verstappen's best first sector of a 32.0. But yeah, if the best time in this session does prove to be a 31.6, then probably in practice 2 it will be the best time in practice to probably a low 31, possibly a late 1 minute 30. And then can see, how they'll get down that time from there on in. And maybe if the best that is done in this session is only a mid 131, maybe they're going to be in qualifying tomorrow, basically matching the pole position time of last year, which was a 29.3. Kevin Magnussen exiting the final chicane and continuing on his lap, as we've got everyone on track now, except for George Russell, Pierre Gasly, and Zhou Guanyu. Hamilton and Ocon now on an out lap. Those two, by the way, had a little race in the pit lane yesterday with remote control cars, which if you do have Twitter, I'm sure you can find the video of it on the Mercedes or Alpine Twitter accounts. Lewis, quite a big fan of remote control cars. Hamilton is out on track on what tyre compound? Can't quite see. I don't think it's the soft. I think it's probably the hard compound tyre. As the FOM just showing Peter Bonington in the garage, of course, Hamilton's race engine. Hamilton is actually on the medium compound tyre. See if this is going to be a proper quick run from ladies. Well, visually, looking at this camera angle they're showing, looking back towards the visor of Lewis Hamilton, looks like he is pushing hard. But is it quick? No. Seconds slower than Verstappen in the first sector alone, so clearly not great. Got a bit of traffic ahead. That traffic, I think, is a Williams or an AlphaTauri. Hopefully we'll get out of his way in a moment. And actually, no, it's an Aston Martin. Yeah, it does get out of his way. Fernando Alonso got out of his way. Lewis Hamilton on. Currently, he is in 13th place. And he now completes the middle sector. And yeah, miles off personal best sector times. It's not a long run, but it's definitely not a quick run. Yeah, it comes to the line and there's a 134.0. Yeah, 134.0 for Lewis Hamilton. Lance Stroll comes into pit, so does Hulkenberg. Yeah, we're just a few minutes away from the end of the session. Probably, well, yeah, probably not going to get any more proper quick runs, I would imagine, in this session, given there's only a few to go. Yeah. Yuki Tsunoda, of course, the home favourite. Just about to the practice start on the exit of the pit lane. As rain quite clearly falling now at Suzuka, and you can see that in the river, middle of the track, that yeah, rain is clearly falling. As I talked about though in my weekend preview, if we get rain this weekend, it's not going to be that like permanent rain that doesn't go anywhere for hours. It's going to be like, a shower that lasts maybe 30, 40 minutes maybe, and then just goes away and it dries up. It's not going to be anything that delays sessions or anything close to that. Looking at the rain for that area of Japan where Suzuka is, I don't think there's any heavy rain forecast. It's light rain or maybe medium intensity as worse. Yeah, Gasly, despite this weather, soft compound tyre is on a better lap. Gasly currently 17th. Esteban Ocon, his teammate, has gone up to 11 on the soft compound tyre, which is not really that good. Gasly, what has he done for the middle sector? 1.4 seconds down on Verstappen after 2 sectors. Quite poor. Down to Gasly. That. So much down to the Alpine car being shit slow, as I expect it will be in the dry this weekend. And yeah, Gasly goes 11th for Alpine, head of Ocon. And Ocon is now behind Nico Hülkenberg and George Russell, now up to 12th place on the medium compound tyre. About 3.5 minutes going. If this rain is going to persist for the next 20 minutes or so, then I don't see why there's any point in Aston Martin there. Letting sorry, another yawn. Letting Lance Stroll back out on track because there's no point risking as far as Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri on their own out laps. Maybe McLaren boys are going to go out there for a final quick run on the soft tyres. It is Sergio Perez at the final chicane, carrying too much speed in and going across the green AstroTurf, and a bit of his car, something being flicked up. And yeah, it was a bit of AstroTurf just flicked up. But thankfully, that bit of AstroTurf that did flick up landed in the AstroTurf itself. So that's not going to cause an issue for Marshall to try and clear off circuit. As yeah, Oscar Piastri on the soft tyre. Hopefully, though, not raining too hard to the point where gain of lap time cannot be made. Good to see McLaren getting some final good laps on the soft. Piastri getting through a few cars. Getting through the Alpine there of Gasly, I think it was. Piastri now with 2 minutes to go starts his final lap of practice 1. Loses the rear end slightly on the exit. Let's see how Oscar does. Flying into turn 1 and turn 2. McLaren car looking pretty good through there. Now into the S's where the McLaren should be at their strongest this weekend. As Oscar running a bit wide for one of the S's. Carried a bit too much speed in. Piastri, not a bad first sector, but it's not great. And all bit pedestrian on turning to the second Degner there. Now into the hairpin. Does that perfectly. Does have a car ahead of him with an Alpine. Will be able to take a bit of a slipstream from, and he now the Alpine lets him past. As Piastri now into Spoon. Not quite getting into the apex, but didn't really affect him too much. There's a slight bit of oversteer on the exit. Spoon. Not the greatest lap from Piastri. Comes to the middle sector point. And 8.5 tenths down. This is not a terrible lap, though, despite those issues. This might put him in the top 5. Young Australian, who is now confirmed new contract to be at McLaren until the end of 2026. And he does go, sadly for him, outside of the top 5 and is in 6th place. So Piastri, yeah, definitely could have done a better lap on that occasion. I think there was probably Yeah, 2, maybe 3 tenths of a second at most on the table there. So Piastri definitely could have been a bit quicker. As Lando Norris, now the checkered flag has fallen, goes third for McLaren. 3/4 of a second slower than Verstappen, and just a tenth and a bit slower than Carlos Sainz. Yeah, checkered flag now has fallen. Let's just see how the final finishing order ends up. There's Tsunoda and Sargent side by side going into the entry. 130R, as Yuki saying, it's so unnecessary, man. This guy, yeah, unnecessary, but I'm not sure necessarily it was totally his fault. Max Verstappen also have hard tyres pushing on, but don't think he's doing quick sectors at all. So, yeah, 131.6 it will be as the quickest time in this session. See how much quicker he and the others can go. 2.5 hours time when practice starts at Suzuka. Hopefully does remain dry, because Saturday and Sunday look like they're going to be dry, so it would be nice if we got a dry Friday practice, so we had a good idea as to how things are looking going into the session itself. But yeah, everyone now has pretty much met the checkered flag. So let me go through your final finishing order of practice 1. So Max Verstappen quickest on a 131.6 on the soft tyre. And everyone has done their time on the soft tyre, by the way, except for Russell, Hamilton, Bottas, and Zhou. 2 Mercedes and 2 Alfa Romeo. So yeah, Verstappen quickest by 6 tenths of a second from Carlos Sainz second. Norris third, Leclerc fourth. Tsunoda 5th, Alonso 6th, Piastri 7th, Albon 8th, Lawson 9th, and Lance Stroll in P10. AlphaTauri looking good so far. Great to see. Then Perez 11th, Gasly 12th, Russell 13th, Hulkenberg 14th, Ocon 15th, Hamilton 16th, Bottas 17th, Magnussen 18th, Sargent 19th, and Zhou Guanyu 20th and last. But we are not done yet for the stream, because now I'm going to throw up on screen the gaps throughout the field, so you guys know, what the whole field spread was for the session. And I will also get into a couple final comments before we come to the end of the stream. But remember, guys, I will be live in just over 2 hours' time again for practice 2. So if you are able to stay awake, or obviously in your part of the world, if it's no problem, then yeah, make sure to join me for that in a couple hours' time. Practice 2, of course, is going to be, much more representative of what we'll see this weekend. Hold on a minute, let me just sign into my F1 account so I can get the proper live timing up, so I can get the gaps up and everything. Yeah, top 3 Verstappen, Sainz, Norris. And then, yeah, Sainz 6 tenths of a second down. Lando Norris almost exactly 3/4 of a second slower than Verstappen. And then you've got Leclerc once again slower by quite a bit compared to Carlos Sainz. Carlos definitely on top in that battle at the moment. And Leclerc only just about quicker than Tsunoda, putting a good lap towards the end there. Fernando Alonso ending up in 6th, just over a second slower than Verstappen, and a few hundredths of a second quicker than Oscar Piastri. Then you've got 3/10 of a second back in 8th place, Alex Albon. Williams weren't looking amazing in that session, but again, it is only practice 1, so I will forgive them. And Albon was just ahead of a person who, if he's not on the grid for next year officially, at least for AlphaTauri, should be really his teammate for next season, Liam Lawson, ending up in 9th. Lance Stroll completes the top 10, and he finishes up Stroll just ahead by 0.003 of a second of his ex-Racing Point teammate, Sergio Perez. And then you've got Pierre Gasly, almost 1.5 seconds down on Verstappen. Then George Russell, obviously 13th. He did his best time on the mediums, though. Tyre corrected. Russell would have been on the soft tyre in 8th place. So, yeah, Mercedes clearly not pushing that hard. And we know, we've seen this with Mercedes. They don't tend to be that aggressive on a Friday. So, I'm not expecting them to be lighting up the timing sheets. Hulkenberg then in 14th. Bit surprised Haas went a tad quicker in that session. And then you got Ocon in 15th. Alpine living up to how poor I think they'll be this weekend. 12th and 15th. And then you've got Lewis Hamilton 16th. 2 seconds down on Verstappen. And then Valtteri Bottas, 17th, also on the mediums. With Alfa Romeo, though, with Bottas, if he had done his time there on the soft compound tyre, then he would have been, instead of 17th, he probably would have been 14th. So, yeah, not really that big of a jump up for Bottas. Magnussen, 18th, 1/10 of a second slower than Valtteri Bottas. And then Logan Sargent, 2.5 seconds down on Verstappen. And at the very back, Zhou Guanyu with him just over 3 seconds slower than Verstappen. Not quite sure why he was so slow compared to his teammate on the same compound, but there you go. There it is. Let me just slightly adjust the position there. There you go. Those are the gaps throughout the field. 3 seconds covering the whole field, and only a second covering top 6. Well, only a second. That's probably a bit more than it should be, and it normally is, even with Red Bull dominating here, as they have. Yeah, practice 2 starts in 2 hours and 20 minutes time. I will bring this stream to an end in a moment. What I want to do, though, is just quickly read out a couple final comments in the chat. Vicky says, I hope I'm wrong, but Red Bulls look fast again. And Mickey also asking, what do you think about the FIA bring back a lap time the drivers have to do on out laps like they did at Monza? I mean, it's probably a good idea to do it at every Grand Prix, but I do understand why they don't want to do it for every Grand Prix, because some tracks it's not really, there's no point. But yeah, if they, mandatorily wanted to bring that in for every single event, then yeah, I'd have absolutely no problem with that to avoid, problems with outlaps and all that stuff. Anyway, thank you guys for coming along for this practice 1 watch. Sorry. Let me do that again. Thank you for coming along for this practice 1 watch along. Much appreciated. Again, if you can, make sure to join me for the practice 2 watch along, which, as you can see, will be starting at 6:45 a.m. UK time. That is in 2 hours and 5 minutes from now. As soon as this stream finishes, I will get the practice 2 watch along stream scheduled, an event up on the channel, so you guys can sit and wait as soon as possible. So I'll be live again in just over 2 hours time until 8:15 a.m. And then later today on Friday, I'll be live at 8 p.m. UK time for the qualifying preview for the Japanese Grand Prix. We're after practice, 1 and 2 later, and look at the car upgrades in a bit more detail from Friday. So make sure to join me for that later today, and also all the other content coming up this weekend. Practice 3 watch along, qualifying watch along, race watch along on Sunday, and the weekend review on Monday. Before you go, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Make sure to smash the like button before you go if you haven't already. And if you want to keep up with content on this channel, make sure to either follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 or join my Discord server, link below in the description if you want to keep up to date with the channel. But guys, until my practice 2 watch along in 2 hours time, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.